Hello, community. So good to be here with you today. Today, I want to ask you if you have ever assumed that the structural aspects of this life were masculine. Like, masculine is structure, feminine is flow. Oh, hey, I think I've said that about 800 times, So things are changing, things are upgrading. And today I actually want to approach this topic of structure and say maybe that's actually not as masculine as we thought. Maybe there are new feminine structures coming online. And this is what I am sensing and experiencing in my life. And this is going to be new information, right? The earth grids are changing, the energetics of the planet are changing. And so this is like present time updates. Welcome to Sacred Remembering Podcast, episode 164, for modern women waking up to the full truth of who we are. And we are attuning to these changes in masculine and feminine and how that applies to our lives, every single category of our lives. So wherever you are on that journey of remembering your truth, remembering the importance that is absolutely within you, and remembering this, rebalancing and reharmonizing as we come out of a patriarchal society, this like internal masculine and feminine reunification that is happening wherever you are on that journey. It is such a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm Sarah Poet. I have walked and I continue to walk this journey, and it is my pleasure to bring some information to you. Okay. So when we are kind of waking up to feminine and masculine, we can hear a whole host of things about what these are. Like, we define them. We say feminine is this, masculine is that. I have had more problems with this in the last few years because it just feels to me like I want to define them less and feel them more. But I understand that here we are on a podcast. Words are necessary. So let's use some words to conceptualize these, energies that make up all of creation, right? So when we're on this journey of being a woman, remembering what sacred feminine might be and activating that in our lives, and wondering what sacred masculine might be and activating that in our lives, we come to it from this perspective of wanting to understand and wanting to give it language, which is all understandable. But sometimes I find that that language can be too narrow. And the way, now this is kind of a metacognitive concept here, so stick with me. Like, we're seeing it within the framework of we've lived in patriarchy, we're coming out of patriarchy, we're healing from a separation paradigm, and we have wounding. We have wounding around feminine and masculine. And so it is through that very lens, it is like where we are at any moment is the lens that we are seeing through. Does that make sense? So, like, we only know what we know when we know it. And that's beautiful. Like, we're on our path of discovery. There are plenty of things that I said a year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago that I no longer agree with because A, I knew what I knew when I knew it, and B, things are changing all the time, inside and outside. So, it can be like a beautiful and broadening awakening process to conceptualize, question, and awaken to things like feminine and masculine. And then sometimes when we seek to understand it, we also limit the concept because of where we are on our path and because of the words and understanding that we have at the time that we're on that path. So I think that we've done this on a grand scale here for a lot of things about feminine and masculine, and what we perceived the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine to be, and then how we had hoped that they would interact based on our experiences as women who were hoping to experience the sacred masculine in a certain way or the sacred feminine in a certain way. I think you're following me. So in doing this, we create these constructs, right? These ideas, like, things we used to say about the masculine. Maybe some people still say these things about the masculine. I'm putting this in past tense here for myself and for this podcast. And, we're all free to just believe what we want to believe, right? So we used to say things like structure is masculine and masculine is structure. Like all of the structure in the whole world was going to be masculine. And like the feminine was just so fluid that it couldn't fit into that structure. Okay. So that is one thing that we thought. Another thing that we like to say in the polarity spaces is the masculine holds the container. The masculine holds the container. Well, what container is this? Is it a box? Is it like, how does he come up with the size of the container? Just food for thought for a moment. Another one that I think I've talked extensively about in various spaces is the masculine is the riverbanks to her river, as if the feminine is the water and the masculine is the riverbanks that holds the water. Well, again, is he telling her the course to take? I think the water tells the land the course. Who's in charge here, right? And then, like these banks, are they big enough? Are they real? Like, is that really how we want to work together? Like riverbanks and the river? Like, so all of these make the masculine sound like it's containment, right? Like it's containment. Now, again, we're working out our stuff. As women, we have trauma. We want to be held by the masculine. We want to be safe. We want, the next man in our lives to disprove how other men have dropped us, right? We want him to have like this strong structural component in his life. And there is nothing wrong with finding a good man with a good structural component in his life. I am telling you what, that's great. But there's also some limitations here. And I think it's limitations for men and women in this. I think that this whole thing of the masculine being structure is quite limited. So I'm going to dive into that right now. So any man is human, like just like any woman is human, any human is just human. Like my point in saying this is like we are fallible. We are not direct examples of the sacred feminine or sacred masculine. So it does not help us as humans in relationships to project ideas of pristine sacredness, make no mistake, onto one another as men, women, and partners. It makes no sense to do that because it's like so much pressure and it's going to fall through. So on this journey of reclaiming feminine, reclaiming masculine, reclaiming relationships, it's a journey to understand what both of these are, but we don't want to put the pressure on our partner to be that. Really, partnership is about finding the divine together. And really, the divine is how feminine and masculine in unification, exist in creation and create creation, right? So when you and your partner get back together, you are coming together to know God as creation and the two of you as a part of that. So there's no pressure for your partner to exemplify the divine, right? You're both divine, you know that, and you're questing to really understand creation together, right? So this notion then again of the masculine being the structure or being the container is going to limit the the potentiality of the relationship, because this man is fallible. He's human. We don't want to pressure him to think that he's got to be as perfect as God, right? That oh gosh, I could go off on that whole, like, on a tangent there about like men and God, and there's like, there's been entitlement in that area. Like, the pressure's off, guys. Like, no no needed pressure to be godlike. Okay, you're just human. You're just human. And you're on a path of remembering, just like we're on a path of remembering. And this path requires deep, deep devotion to things like remembering the divine relationship to the Holy Mother, the divine feminine, the essence of all life, and the same for the Holy Father, the divine masculine. We're all on a path of remembering all of that. And so I don't know, how many men you all know who have dove so deep into his own remembrance of the divine feminine and really healed all of his wounds about the entire feminine, such that he would never cause any kind of like harm, intentional or unintentional, or like he would never, flub up in his masculinity such as to like drop the feminine. I think that these men who are wonderful, they're like on a path of, evolution. They're not God. They're not the essence of the Christos, of the divine masculine. They're men. So as a woman, I cannot imagine giving over all structural components of a life, of consciousness, of, running a household, like all, well, and the most important really is like the structure to hold the entirety of the relationship. So I will tell you that on my path early on in this remembrance of the feminine and the masculine, I did this. I absolutely did this. Like, I was healing my relationship with the feminine and then with the masculine. And then I wanted a man who was going to come into my life and just show me all the safety, show me all of this essence of the sacred masculine, and just show me that that existed and that that was possible. And then I was hearing these messages like, oh, the feminine is flow. The feminine is supposed to surrender to the masculine. The masculine is supposed to be the structure and the consciousness and the decision maker. And so I kind of laid down my feminine, my discernment, my healthy masculine, all of that, and let men make decisions about my life and about our relationship. And then they dropped me. Happened twice. Okay. So I learned this the very hard way, because each time had tremendous consequences, not only on my own personal emotional process, but also my resources, housing, these like major, major things in life were impacted because I like laid too much at a regular man's feet. Okay? So there are limitations to like taking these ideas. Masculine is structure. Feminine is supposed to surrender to that structure. There are so many limitations in like taking these ideas that you hear in like maybe some polarity teachings and then trying to directly apply them to life, because the structure, let me just go into this now. Like, well, I was going to say, because all of that is way too limited. It's just too like limited a scope with which to live your life. Okay. And that sort of like containment, like, can this man who has realized as much as he has realized up until this moment in this lifetime, can he hold the vastness of the feminine? That's a really good question. There we go. That's a good one, right? So do you really think that the masculine should be put in this place of expecting to fully hold the feminine? It's nothing against men. It's just like, it's like this, we live in this patriarchal world. So then we have all of these like patriarchal overlays, even in our spirituality, even in our awakening. We have to go, oh, like I think I'm learning about awakening and feminine and masculine and right relationship, but really there are still so many patriarchal overlays, because this, common polarity rhetoric is still telling me that the masculine is still the savior. It's still telling me that the masculine is supposed to hold it all and that the feminine is just supposed to fit into the size container that the masculine has for it. So it's like, let's just broaden. Okay. And so what's really happening, and I might do an entirely other episode on this. So wherever you are watching or listening to this, go ahead and pop a comment if you would like a separate episode on the masculine as light and electrification and filling the space that the feminine provides, because that's really what's happening. That's not where I'm going with this episode, but that's really what's happening. I've actually been talking to more men about this these days. So this is exciting, because this notion of him having to be the container is like falling apart. It is no longer so applicable, and it's pressurized and it's false. And, women are getting bigger and bigger all the time, like in our vastness. We're reclaiming our parts. We are healing. We are so much more feminine than ever. We are big, but we want to be met in partnership at the same time. So here we have to do this. We have to actually recode this patriarchal overlay rhetoric that says that some divine masculine is going to come hold us in all that we have cultivated. I mean, I just can't imagine. I truly cannot imagine ever meeting a man in this lifetime or any other, truly, that fully understands everything that I've been through and everything that I've cultivated. I can't explain it. I used to like meet men and date them and try to explain the things that have happened. There's no way. There is no way that the vastness of me and all that I've cultivated and all that I know how to do and all that I'm in touch with and all of my wisdom, there's no way that I could ever tell a man about that in such a way that he could conceptualize the vastness of this feminine that I am in such a way that he could contain all of it. Fuck no. Impossible. So I'm not trying to do that. So what we want, women, and this is what you can let me know if you want to hear more about, what we want is to be in the vastness and be met with the counterpart masculine that is electrification and light as the essence of the masculine. So replacing the essence of the masculine as structure and containment, and like upgrading it as the essence of the masculine as light and electrification. And then you can kind of feel into that. It's like, well, as big as a space that she would take up, his own electrification has to be like also powerful enough to fill all that vastness. And so this is what's so exciting, because you can see like throughout history, there have been so many attempts to contain the feminine, to box her in, to strip her of even like her legal rights, so that she was like more controllable, right? And then like all of these religious rules and all of this and that, like it was to make the feminine more controllable, because the feminine is truly the most vast force like there ever was. It's so vast, and it's also so like unpredictable, and like you cannot study it in a textbook. It's like this lived experience that we're like, this is what we're doing, we're bringing this back, right? We're reclaiming this, and then it's like, well, okay, well, now I'm living with this bigness. Who can meet me in this bigness? So the masculine, generally speaking, culturally speaking, is having a bit of a deconstruction that I imagine is a bit uncomfortable. I know it's uncomfortable for my clients. I work with individuals and couples and help to repattern these, our little walk through patriarchal healing here. And so I know from the men that I'm talking to that this is uncomfortable, because their whole cultural sort of doctrine was, have it all together and like be able to be provider. And then even in these like polarity teachings, that was the message of like that the masculine is provision, the masculine is the structure. Those are really healthy components of the masculine. But it's not about like the man being the only one responsible for those things. So let me get back on track here. So really, we want the bigness of him to be able to meet the bigness of us. So we don't want to be contained. I don't want to be inside of whatever kind of container, riverbanks or box or otherwise, that any blessed, beautiful man could create for me. Like, I don't want it. But I want to be in the fullness of who I am, and a man be in such the fullness of who he is that his like light, his electrification, we could also say penetration, right? Like his electrical penetration can meet the vastness. Now you can feel that that's a real invitation for a man. That is out of comfort zone, right? That is like beyond the cultural imprints of like what a man has been told. Like, if you do this, then you will be successful. If you do this, then a woman should be pleased with you. Whoo, Lordy, this is like going so far beyond that. So a man really has to go through so much before he is like able to be this, or to be willing to be this, because there are going to be times that he can't fully understand her. He can't, there are going to be times that he doesn't feel bigger than her. He doesn't feel in control. He doesn't feel like he can contain it. So if a man is told that his masculinity is about his ability to hold and contain, and then something so like uncontainable happens, it's not about his ability to have that all under control. It's about whether his essence, whether his presence can stay with the entirety of that situation, like whether energetically, electrically, he can stay with the entire situation in his presence. And so you can feel that there's this like fragile thing about the ego that would absolutely need to fall away for a gentleman to like not be so attached to his ego that he thinks that that's his own failure, you know? So like when it starts to become something that he can't control or contain, or like she becomes something that is uncontrollable, uncontainable, and he meets that vastness, of the feminine. I'm not even talking about like, you know, a tantrum, a feminine tantrum. I'm not even talking about that. That's shadow feminine. But I'm talking about like the bigness of the feminine that you have cultivated, right? Like all of your mysticism, your different ways of knowing, like who you are in your body and your embodiment, right? Like these are the things that like you're going to be bringing forward more and more in your feminine essence. And men are having to redefine and just they're going through initiations. That's what that is. So don't forget that I also help men in that pathway of their initiations, because all that's going to come up right there, it's not your partner's responsibility. All the ways you feel inadequate and all the ways that you are grappling right there, men, not your partner's responsibility to emotionally labor for you in that space. Okay? Reach out to me. Okay, so here's what I wanted to talk about today with the feminine structure. There's a new feminine structure, and I have been activating it in my life, and I can guarantee you that what I say today, I'm going to learn more about it next week, next month, next year, right? So this is a timestamp, this point in time, the middle of June 2024. This is very exciting, and for about the last 6 months, this spiral of creation has been really activating in my life and in my energy field. And actually, if you go back to last November, I believe there's a Sacred Remembering episode called The Portal Door. And at the end of that, there's an energy activation that is an activation into this spiral. So that was about the time where I was starting to get more and more information about the spiral. And then it's activated, you know, in my energy field, in the way I behave, in the energetics that hold my life. I see it in meditations, and then I talk to friends about it, and we use our sacred feminine gnosis to kind of tune in to what is going on. And this is very exciting. So, you know, well, there's a part of me too that had been like attuning to and seeking these regenerative energetics, you know, like when Heartland came to me, which is a story that you've heard me tell in other episodes. It was like, there is a way for the feminine to not deplete. There is a way for the feminine to have like more energy, you know, and there is this possibility of this regenerative template for the feminine. And you can see that in false structures. So like patriarchy itself is a false structure. It's a structure of someone has power, someone doesn't. Someone has resources, someone doesn't. Someone's safe, someone's not, right? It's a polarity construct that was put in place in a time of fallen consciousness on this planet. And so it's inherently divisive, inherently like a power differential inside of that. So the consciousness structures that built that frame were fallible. Okay. The consciousness structures that built the frame that we've lived inside of in our culture are false structures. I'm going to go a little deeper about what I mean by that. These are false structures in that they're not created by nature. They're not natural. They're not of organic creation that would only want thriving life for us. So original creation, masculine and feminine, had no differential. They didn't have to make their way back to union because they were union itself. There was nothing else. So that was in the beginning. And then we've had this time of separation. Do you understand that? So, or I don't want to say, do you understand? Does that feel like truth to you? You don't have to understand or stand under me and my truth. Does that feel like truth to you? Right? I want to change my language there. So, all right. So where was I going with that? So the frame that we've had, and I'm going to call that a structure that we've had of consciousness, of society, of culture, of marriage, of partnership, all of these frames, all of these structures existed within a bigger consciousness structure. And that consciousness structure was false. It was not real creation. And then we labeled that masculine. We said, masculine built this structure. Masculine is in charge of this structure. Masculine is in power in this structure. And we created this false notion that man masculine meant upholding a false consciousness structure. Are you with me? So you could call this, this is like a false creation or a fallen creation or like a matrix situation or false light, right? Because if we're saying that the masculine is light and then we're saying that this is the way that it is, it's like, well, that's not actually the architecture of actual organic thriving creation, okay? And in other places and other videos and podcasts I have spoken about, I will continue to speak about, there is an architecture of organic creation. This is like a part of my soul. I see some geometries. I see like the architecture of creation and the geometries that actually want to come back together in union. So high five, soul of mine. I think I have Templar in my soul, like ancient Templars. So I see the geometrics as just one aspect of my soul. So that being said, if there is this false structure of creation, well, no fucking wonder we don't want to fit into it. Right? Women, like, okay, so you're telling me that if I want to be a strong woman, I have to do this, this, and this and go fit into this structure in the workplace. Well, that doesn't feel good. My body doesn't feel good in that. Okay, you're telling me if I want to have like a husband, then I have to do this, this, and this to fit into this structure. Well, that doesn't feel good. Then we did the same dang thing with sacred feminine and sacred masculine. This is why I started the podcast the way I started it. Do you understand? Oh, I must said it again. What's up with that today? Do you see? Okay, so we took this like overlay of masculine is the structure. Masculine is the one who determines the consciousness and the structure of the way we do things. And then, okay, women and feminine fit into it. And okay, women and awakening feminine fit into it. Well, I don't want to fit into even a well-intentioned brother. I don't want to fit into his notions of what feminine means, what feminine is capable of, right? So it boxes us in, and then we can't like fully express that feminine inside of those false architectural structures of thought and like cultural creation. Okay? All right, so stick with me. So we're doing away with this like imposed patriarchal, false false masculine and false structure. And brothers, I just want to say here, you get to let go too. Like, it's not a loss of power. It's like, oh, thank God we get to do it differently, right? Because we get to lay down what's uncomfortable. Okay. So the replacement, just cutting to the chase here, the replacement that I'm seeing is this total restructuring of energy back into a spiral of creation. So the false structures are done. They're going to be dying out. They're falling away. They're like, women more and more and more cannot fit into them. We cannot bring ourselves to fit into them. We won't do it. And then it's like, well, what else is there? And so I'm finding, discovering that there is this spiral of creation. And I'll just share a few things about this. And then if you're interested in coming to regenerative feminine events, coming to the Sacred Remembering community, we are in an ongoing process of activating these new earth energetics. I call the new earth heartland. I call these energetics the regenerative feminine. These are my words for it. And so I am always providing opportunities to activate in these energetics. So if you come to those spaces, there will be more and more and more energy activation. And you can also feel for it in your own life. So this regenerative spiral, a friend and woman in the Sacred Remembering community, I was sharing this concept with them, and she said, oh, I was attuning to the cycles. I was attuning to, like, I need to do things in cycles, but I wasn't seeing a 3D aspect of a spiral. So the crystal spiral starts at the 0 point. And okay, there's a little bit about geometry here that you can just like feel into and maybe do some research on. But like the Fibonacci sequence and like the flower of life geometry that you're told is infinite is actually not. It's actually finite. Okay. There's like a dead, it's not fully regenerative. So there's a dead geometry inside of those geometries and math structures that all of us have been told are infinite. So just another layer of like, what is real and what is false light and all of this, right? So if everybody's believing in a flat flower of life that's actually a finite geometry, well, then you're not actually getting back to the essence of original creation. Do you see that? So there are geometries that are actually of nature, actually of regenerative organic creation. And these same energetics were canceled out in this time of domination, power, separation, trauma, etc. on our planet. So as we're awakening to go to the fully regenerative energetics is amazing, because we want these energetics to be what holds our creational energy, and I'll say our energetic light body. So our energetic light body, the energetic structure that holds us and the one that holds the planet, has been tampered with by these old false structures, and like separation tactics have worked on our own energy body and energy system. And so now, as we're remembering and activating these regenerative energetics, it's happening too in the light body of our own architecture. Like, so important. And it's one and the same. Like, we can activate it, and then the energy architecture in our own body has to actually change as well. So it's happening in tandem, and then it happens in tandem with the earth and the earth structure and the earth light body. Okay, this is Heartland. Okay, so the crystal spiral, this regenerative spiral, doesn't start at the mathematical 1, it starts at the 0 point. It starts at 0. And then as it spirals, I see it also amplifying. So if it starts kind of at your metaphorical 0 point, then this spiral, as it spirals around you, around your energy architecture, and around your life, will increase at increments that are actually regenerative. It will go out and up, right? In these regenerative amplifying frequencies. So cool. So I started to see this as like this aqualine blue color, like this aqualine blue. And it was pretty clear to me that like I could feel what felt like the electrics of creation, which we would have said was masculine, which we would have thought were like straight lines, or yellow light, like these are the things, how it usually shows up, right? And so this is just testing all of me, because I was like, what are we looking at? Where's the masculine? Where does it belong? Like this is my sacred remembering path at the current moment. And I share a lot with Mary Costello, who has been on the podcast a few times. And we're actually going to have an energy ceremony coming up in July. So reach out to me at sarahpoet.com, be on the email list so that you can get the invite to that ceremony that Mary and I are going to do, where we're going to activate a lot of these energetics and more, because that's a whole month away. So you never know what'll come in from now to then. So this was showing up as this like aqualine, like really beautiful, like a diamond light essence, or color. And this spiral was like holding these regenerative energetics, and I could just feel it. But it was also as if it was like made of the like waters of creation. So these like Sophianic, like mother's waters, right? And it had this like water, like feel to it, elemental feel to it. And then it also felt like it itself was electrified. So all the time, like with this spiral, I was like, it's so feminine. Like, where's the masculine going to come into it? Where, is there going to be some lightning bolt from above? Like, where's the masculine coming into it? And, the most recent thing I've said to Mary, like the most recent thing I've got on this is that there's this, like, the electrics are serving creation, like they're inside of the spiral. And so this will bring me to kind of like my final point and a conclusion just for today, is that there's this reminder. I mean, I already said this earlier, but I'll reiterate it in a new way, that everything we think we've known about the feminine and masculine comes from where we've been and what we've hoped for, and how we've hoped, in our trauma healing, that someone would show up for us and show us the divine, eternal essence of the feminine and masculine. And really, it was when I let go of that I began tapping more into the feminine and masculine as the energetics that comprise creation. And those are changing. I would say restoring. I would also say we should get ready to be pleasantly surprised. And so there's this whole element of discovery. Like I'm saying to you, I am someone who has been with feminine and masculine every single day of my life for nearly a decade. Like just questing. In some ways, right now, I think I understand less than I ever did because I just feel things changing so much. And I've relinquished this need to say, well, the sacred feminine is this, or the sacred feminine is that, or the same for the masculine, right? And so it's like you and I, on our awakening path, the whole gig about being a human, I'm really boiling it down here to like this one point. The whole thing about being a human right now is actually about the resurrection of the light body. Like, that's what it is. Like, we could say, oh, it's about healing our trauma or finding God or finding the perfect soul union or this or that. But like, really, when we heal and resurrect our own unified energy, and the resurrected light body is a unified field, as we do that, we become a vessel and a conduit of creation and of creational forces. And yeah, like there's also a part of me where I'm in deep service to men. Like if a man walks through my door and says, Sarah, can you help me with this? And the exchange agreement is something that I agree to. It's like, that is my pleasure to also help the gentleman, right? Like anyone on this path. But largely, in the past few years, another thing that I have really done is kind of like let go of processing and analyzing the masculine so much, because truly, like I have dove so deep into my path as a woman and into how these creational energetics impact me and my womb center and like, this life as a feminine on this planet with, of course, masculine energy as well. But I fully trust that there are men diving this deep, like, and my counterpart will like be one of them, right? Like, yeah, I just trust that. So there are aspects of the masculine in creation right now that I don't understand, and that actually feels really good. Like it feels really good that my feminine does not like seek to know or analyze every aspect of the masculine at this point in time. And another reason is, I'll just be totally straightforward with you, that this is such an important time for the true feminine to actually be reclaimed on the planet and in these creational energetics, and for us to move toward this like spiral of life that has so much to do with our womb space and our sovereignty in our womb space and how we use all of our energy. That, this is a big statement that I'm about to say, like all of this patriarchal importance about men and like how very important they were to God and to country and to all of it. Like men are important, but in this new paradigm, there's going to be a significant shift. I really feel that there's going to be like, and it's going to just crush some men. I can just feel it. Like there's a great crumbling, but it doesn't have to. Like the crumbling is in the ego structure. And like the men that survive that is going to be really, really beautiful, right? Because there's a re-honoring of the feminine that must take place next. Like it just must. And I don't even worry about like whether or not men are going to come along on that. I know that it's happening. Like it actually is the energetics of the earth right now. Like, not even necessarily talking about like women and human behavior, but it is the energetics of the earth itself that are changing. And so this is going to cause changes in all of us. And so that like humble curiosity is really important. And the like devotion to creation itself is so important. Both of those things are so much more important, imperative actually, than understanding exactly the definition of feminine and exactly the definition of masculine, because I promise you right now, those are becoming antiquated. So beautiful. Oh my gosh, we got through in less than an hour. I love this. And yeah, like just ladies, remember that like you are the mystery incarnate, you are. And we have to wash out. It takes a long time. Like we have to wash clean the traumas that happened, the traumas of separation that happened in the old false structures. And like the process of once again becoming unified within us, once again like feeling our crystalline essence, once again becoming the fertile ground of creation, is a really beautiful, ultimately it's hard as fuck, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes, but like it's ultimately also a very beautiful journey, and it is so important that we do it. So my name again is Sarah Poet, and I am here in service to all of us on this unity path. And there's a special acknowledgement that I very, very much know that the answers and the revelations, for where we're going are mostly inside of women like you who listen to this podcast. And the world needs what you have in you. And as you walk your own sacred remembering journey, what you remember is what the world needs. And this is me sitting here modeling the same thing that I just said to you. What I remember, the world needs. So that's why I make this podcast for you, because these intuitions, these ways of knowing, were buried so far, so deep under immense layers of trauma, immense layers of masculine, actually, and feminine, father and mother trauma, and just false notions about my own limitations. Who I had been was buried under, no, I think I said that wrong, but you know what I mean. Who I truly am, and that's the one I'll be discovering like the rest of my life and then the rest of my lifetimes. Who I truly am was buried under trauma, was buried under the false constructs. And so as we remember, we unearth more truths, and then we can share them back. And so if I can support you on your journey in doing that, just please know that I'm behind you 100%. It's the most important thing. It really is. So much love to you. Please reach out and connect to me. If you want to leave a comment wherever you're watching this, that's beautiful. If you want to email me, it is sarah@sarahpoet.com. And I do hope that you go over to my website and sign up for my newsletter list, which is the space where I am in the closest contact with those following my work. So I welcome you there. So much love. I hope that this podcast has been supportive to you. If it has, I also welcome you to share it with a friend. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.